Cindy's Library, and today I'm going to talk about what I read for the rest of the month of June, not June, May, since today is the first day of June. So, let's get to it, shall we? So, first of all, I did an individual review for this one because I absolutely loved it. The Soul of an Octopus by Montgomery, which talks about her experiences with octopuses, starting with an aquarium in Boston and several octopuses that she met there, to some encounters in the wild, shall we say, several different locations. Absolutely loved it. I'll try to remember to put the full review. Let's see. Yes. Much Ado About Nothing by Shakespeare. This is a favorite. I admit I fell in love with it first from the Emma Thompson and Kenneth Branagh movie back in the 90s. But good to read it again. I read it because I have some hopes that I will see this at the Shakespeare Festival this summer. Then I read Anne of Avonlea. So Anne is 16. She has graduated from Queen's. She has decided to spend some time teaching so she can help look after Marilla, which turns out to be a good thing since some twins enter their lives, and we meet some other new characters. Just so wonderful to spend time with Anne and all of her friends, though. Absolutely love that. And I also read Agnes Grey by Anne Bronte. This is a governess novel, and she tells the dark side of being a governess. It really is a difficult position to be in, because usually these young ladies, or ladies as the case may be, were from more genteel backgrounds, but circumstances had forced them to earn a living, and being a governess was one of the very few ways they could do that. And so they were beneath the family, but they didn't fit in with the serving class either, so they tended to be rather lonely. This tells of Agnes Grey's decision to become a governess and the adventures she has with that. She ends up being with two different families and then at a school. Absolutely love it, though. This may be a fairly realistic novel as far as it goes, especially compared to something like Jane Eyre or Wuthering Heights, but it still has fairy tale elements in it. Let's see, I also read Fahrenheit 451. In a society where firemen, they don't stop fires. They pretty much don't need to. Houses are now built and old ones have been coated with substances that don't burn. So they burn books instead. But our hero, Guy Montag, is a fireman. And when we first meet him, he seems to love his life. He loves burning things. But he encounters a new neighbor, Clarice, that starts him questioning everything. Although we do learn that seeds apparently were planted before, but, and sad to say, we seem to live in very much this society. The sad thing is, the books weren't burned because the government thought them dangerous or anything like that. They were burned because no one cared about them anymore. People were too distracted. Sound like our world? Maybe. Let's see. Also read a preface to Paradise Lost by C.S. Lewis. So, very glad I did. I feel ready to try to tackle Paradise Lost now. And since I'm reading that this month, hopefully, that's a good thing. I do find it interesting, though. Aside from explaining Milton and his times and the format of Paradise Lost, this also explains why I struggled with the Iliad. So thank you, C.S. Lewis. I also read the first half of A Study in Scarlet by Arthur Conan Doyle. Love meeting Holmes and Watson and them meeting each other. And of course, and getting a place in Baker Street and everything. And Watson being amazed, first skeptical, then amazed at Holmes's ability. That's all great. And no, I'm not planning on reading the second half. The first half is great. Holmes solves the mystery. The second half explains why this particular murder was done in the first place. And it involves the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, of which I am a member, and more often commonly known as Mormons, so that is not the name, and Conan Doyle got basically everything wrong. So no, I feel no need to read the second half of that again. I did read it the first time. So we'll leave it at that and move on to the next book, which is, what is the next one? That's right, The Sign of the Four. Don't know when I'll get to it, but it'll be waiting for me when I am ready. And I read Cheaper by the Dozen, written by Frank B. Gilbreth Jr. and Ernestine Gilbreth Carey. This is a story about their growing up years. Their father was an efficiency expert, rather self-taught, but brilliant in that area, and the mother a psychologist. And so between the two of them, rather a powerhouse. And yes, there really were 12 children that they had, apparently. Father especially is quirky, and you can just sense this is a love letter to him. Greatly enjoyed it. And let's make sure I didn't miss anything. Oh, yes. I read The Heavens Are Open by Wendy Watson Nelson, who is the wife of President Russell M. Nelson, who is a prophet and president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And she is amazing as well. talking a lot about revelation, and if ever there was a time when we needed revelation, both as a church and a world and individually, today is that time. So glad I read it. And then I read Miss Pym Disposes by Josephine Tay. It was brilliantly written as, well, I've only read one other Josephine Tay books, but it's well written as that. We have Miss Pym, who wrote a bestseller on psychology, and so she's invited to lots of places to lecture on her subject, including this schoolgirl, or this college for girls, learning. It's a combination of physical education and more medical things. In any case, she gets invited by an old school friend who's the headmistress there. And at first she doesn't want to stay, but stay after the day of the lecture, I should say. And she wants to go back to London, but she's convinced to stay, and the longer she stays, the more she loves it there, the more she comes to love the girls and the staff and get to know everyone. But then there is a troubling decision. And when you hear both sides, you can kind of see why the headmistress went against everyone else on one level, but on the other level, no one agreed with her for very good reason. And then tragedy strikes. Well written, very tragic story. And in the end, I guess you could say Miss Pym disposes, but in a way it almost doesn't matter. Yeah, I'm glad I read it. Not sure I'm in a hurry to read it again. That's probably the best way to put it. Anyway, that is what I have read for the second half of the month of May. So, pretty good second half of the month, I would say. Got through a number of things, so that is wonderful. Have you read any of these books? Love to hear about it if you have and what you thought about them. Hope your May has gone as well, reading-wise or otherwise. Thank you so much for stopping by. I truly do appreciate it. So until next time, I hope we all stay safe and healthy. And as always, happy reading.